And we are back, and we are no longer in darkness. Apologies for that. In yesterday's video, my light wasn't working. We are now back to normal, and I am a little bit more zoomed in thanks to my new camera. So let me know in the comments what you think of the new camera. As for today's video, it is back to the fantasy football. It is game week 30, and as always, I will be building a team of players that I think you should be including in your squads for this week. Before we do that, though, we will round up everything that happened in the double game week last week, see how my team got on, and see how many of you guys were able to beat it. Before we get into that, though, as always, a quick reminder for you to drop a like on the video if you enjoy this series, and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Now let's see how my best of team got on in game week 29. And as you can see, it was a score of 130, which I really shouldn't be sitting here complaining about, but I am a little bit disappointed because, I'll be honest, a fair few of my players didn't play both games. And we'll start with Wan-Bissaka, who actually didn't play either game because he picked up an illness the morning before the Newcastle game and then ended up not playing against Newcastle or against Brentford for Manchester United this week. We then had Ferguson not play the first game for Brighton. We had Isak not start the second game for Newcastle. We had Ricardo not start either game for Leicester, but thankfully he was able to come on and score in the first one. And of course, Bukayo Saka didn't start for Arsenal and ended up only getting 1 point. Despite that, though, it did still end up being a very good week. Jason Steele able to get 10 points for Brighton, Trippier with the 14, Mitoma as captain getting 14, totaling 28 for him, Rashford with the 12, and on the bench, Agard, who I picked just as like the most likely to do well for West Ham in regards to the fact that he was the most likely to start. I never could have imagined he would have actually scored, got the clean sheet, and got the 3 bonus points. So for him to end up getting 15, that was absolutely massive as well. So all in all, it totaled a score of 130. Not a bad score overall, but it was not enough to keep some people from winning this week's challenge, and we'll shout out those people right now. So as you can see, we had 7 winners to the Game Week 29 challenge in the Esso 99 League. Arthava and Scott both picking up the joint win with a 145 score, but incredible scores all round for everyone on your screen right now. So congratulations to all of this week's winners. Let's see what that has done to the Esso 99 League, because a lot of the people on that list are ones very close to the top, and they have started to really pile the pressure on our leader, James Morris, who only scored 105, meaning that both David and Arthava have both managed to get in the 100-point mark of him now. So huge pressure on James to hold on to that lead for the rest of the season. Can he do it? Find out in the coming weeks. As for my own personal team, not the best of team, I've managed to get my personal team up to now 13th in the league as I continue to claw my way back up the table, hopefully to get in and around the top 10 come the end of the season, but we shall see. Congratulations again, as always, to any of you that have managed to maintain their spots in the top 20 over the course of this season. Now let's finally look ahead to my best of team for Game Week 30, and of course the players that I think you guys should be looking at including in your teams for this week. And as always, we will start with the 2 goalkeepers. I've gone for De Gea as my starting goalkeeper over Martinez. I'll explain that a little bit more when I get to the defenders of the respective clubs, but I actually think Martinez is the better option this week in terms of an out-and-out goalkeeper choice. You'd have to say Aston Villa have the most chance of getting a clean sheet this week out of all the teams in the Premier League at home to Nottingham Forest. The way that Villa are playing at the moment, the way that Forest are playing at the moment, you would thoroughly expect Villa to get the clean sheet. But on the flip side, I also think De Gea is probably more likely to make a couple more saves. Everton do tend to create chances at Old Trafford for some reason. Even though they've not been playing great this season, they always end up having a lot of chances at Old Trafford. Just it's happened historically. So I've gone for De Gea in that regard. And the other reason is, in terms of a Manchester United defender, I've gone for Tyrell Malacia, which is a huge risk because it's unclear whether or not Luke Shaw is going to be fit. I'm banking on the fact that he isn't, hence why I'm suggesting if you want to go for a little bit of a rogue shout this week, if you want to go for a slightly cheaper option in defence, then go for Tyrell Malacia, because I think he will be starting against Everton. However, the other cheap option that then plays back for Aston Villa is Alex Moreno, who is playing very, very well at the moment. He's creating chances. He's a likely goal assist, a potentially even goal score option this week for Aston Villa. And like I say, they're at home to Nottingham Forest, so I'm banking on them to get the clean sheet. I very almost went for Martinez and Moreno in the starting lineup, but I had to go for De Gea because I'm a little bit biased. Rounding off the rest of the defence, I'm sticking with Ben Chilwell. He's played very, very well over the last few weeks. He's picking up a lot of points, and I think Frank Lampard will continue to pick him. And then I've gone for Nathan Ake, who has been very, very impressive for me for Man City. Sod's Law states that Pep Roulette will mean he is then taken out of the team this week, because whenever you pick a slightly more rogue Man City option, Pep obviously takes them out. But I'm going for Nathan Ake. I expect City to get a clean sheet against Southampton. And as always, I've still picked Kieran Trippier as my final option, because pretty much every single one of you has him anyway. He's always likely to pick up points, whether it's goals or assists. And you never know, they might just get the clean sheet against Brentford as well. On to the midfield, and this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. I have picked the players that are on the absolute tip-top form at the moment. Harvey Barnes at home to Bournemouth. He seems to be the only Leicester player doing any sort of damage at the moment. He played very well against Aston Villa and didn't really deserve to be on the losing side in midweek, so I'm backing him to do well against Bournemouth. Jack Grealish, man of the match performance against Liverpool. He will most definitely start against Southampton the way that he's playing at the moment. So again, Pep Roulette dictates that he now won't play. Marcus Rashford is Manchester United's only source of goals for like the last 2 months. So I have to keep picking him, as I do expect United to get the win against Everton. And I've gone for Jack Harrison against Crystal Palace, because Leeds have been making a small recovery over the last few weeks. And Jack Harrison has been the main force behind that. He scored in all of the last 3 games, I believe. He's creating a lot of chances for teammates as well, that on other days would have resulted in some assists for him. So I think he's just one that's been a bit quiet this season. The last couple of seasons he's been picking up a lot of points and he's been in a lot of people's teams, but I think the last few weeks he's been back to his best. So I'm taking a gamble on Jack Harrison in midfield, and again, if you're looking for a cheap option for this week, I would thoroughly suggest him. My final pick, which I have put on the bench, is Mason Mount, because I think Lampard will go back to Mason Mount. He's the player that he trusts most. I think he will go straight back into Chelsea's starting lineup now that Frank Lampard is back in charge of the club. And he's more than likely to contribute against a Wolves side that are really much out of form. But I'm not confident enough to stick him straight in the starting lineup. Hence why I've put him on the bench, just to sort of give him as a suggestion to you guys for the coming weeks. I think you're going to see an awful lot of Mason Mount before the end of the season with Frank Lampard in charge. And then finally, the front three. Don't really need to say too much about this lot. Erling Haaland will be back for Manchester City against Southampton. He's trained the last 2 days, so he will most definitely be back in the Manchester City team. Whether or not he starts would be the only thing that's a little bit of a concern, because obviously he is still working his way back to fitness. Alvarez had a very good game against Liverpool, so I can't guarantee Haaland starts the game. That is why he is not my captain. And of course, my actual captain has been phenomenal over the last few weeks. But I think if you've got Erling Haaland, you definitely leave him in your teams this week, because he is going to be back. And I'm pretty confident, even if it's off the bench, you'll see him do something against Southampton. Next to him, I have gone for Gabriel Jesus, which again is a bit of a risk. There's no guarantee he starts this game against Liverpool. It was very easy to just say, just pick your Sakas, Martinellis, Odegaard, etc., etc. But I'm not 100% confident Arsenal will get the result against Liverpool, but I think Jesus will be involved one way or another, whatever happens. So he is the one that I've gone for this week, and I expect him to be starting a lot more games due down to the end of the season. So with his price still being relatively cheap for a forward, I think Gabriel Jesus is a good pickup this close to the end of the season. And of course, I had to go for Ollie Watkins as my captain this week. I'm a little bit annoyed at myself that I didn't pick him for last week, because I expected him to do well. I just thought there were so many striker options last week that someone had to miss out, and it was Ollie Watkins for my best of team that missed out. Not this week though. We've spoken about Aston Villa enough in this video already. We expect them to beat Nottingham Forest relatively comfortably, and in the form that Ollie Watkins is in right now, no doubt he will be involved in the scoring if the game does go as expected, and that is why I have made him my captain. And that is going to be it for today's video. All that is left to say is, like we do every single week, if you guys think that your team is capable of beating the team on your screen right now, all you need to do is join the Esso 99 League. We do this every single week. The league code is still valid from the start of the season. There are just 9 game weeks left, so get your teams in if you think your team is capable of beating the team that I have just beaten. As you would have seen in this video, winning managers get shouted out every single week as well. Thank you very much for watching. I will be back very, very soon. I believe the next video I'll be posting will be the return of Champions League predictions, so I will see you then.